So Satsang is a recollection and a celebration, a recollection of our true nature as causeless peace and happiness. A celebration of presence, of being, effortless being. Sharing the teaching, inquiry into the teaching, and the meditation of presence. This temporary realm is meant for us to awaken to the causeless happiness. We are all seeking happiness, looking for happiness in everything we do. But in looking outwardly, in believing that happiness is in a certain situation, in a certain relationship, in a certain experience, we realize that whenever we find it, in the situation or in the relationship or in a certain experience, that as soon as we found it, we lose it again. Something changes, the relationship changes, our expectations about the job or the situation changes. And we notice that the mind is now chasing the next relationship, the next situation, the next experience. And we do this enough time, lifetime after lifetime, we become exhausted and disillusioned. We go through all the negative emotions again and again, again and again. Until we start to look within, start to contemplate. And we start to discern the real from the transitory, from the impermanent. We start to discriminate between consciousness, impersonal, borderless presence, and the mind that's constantly generating I thoughts and me feelings. The myriad images, the myriad thoughts, that guide us towards objects that are impermanent, impermanent in relationship, impermanent in experiences, impermanent in situations. And via our contemplation and our discernment, that I thought, the mechanism of generating I thoughts, generating objects of desire or objects of avoidance, that mechanism starts to quiet down. And in this quieting down, there is an opportunity for us to experience the peace, the causeless peace of the self. The peace of the self has no person in it. Happiness is not personal. There isn't a separate character that is experiencing this happiness. It is a recognition and what is it that recognizes happiness and peace and happiness? It's a good question. In the end, it really doesn't matter as long as you're happy. But this question may arise. Within happiness itself, there is the recognition of happiness. It recognizes itself as being happiness, being peace, well-being, inner equanimity, the undisturbable transparency of being. Whenever a thought arises that disturbs your well-being, is an opportunity for you to stop and look at that and not to quickly try to get rid of the feeling. Instead, you stop, you be still, and you invite whatever is arising to be without any resistance, without any personal intention of fixing it or getting rid of it. This way you will see its cloud-like or mist-like nature. That in fact there was really nothing there. And that impression that there was something happening was just due to your habitual resistance or your habitual seeking. So that imaginary problems, what you experience as problems, are habitual tendencies to think that things should be otherwise, or to resist things that are because you don't want them to be. And the mind creates all sorts of stories and supporting evidence that are made out of thoughts to justify your inner emotive position. There is a thunderstorm happening here. So I welcome whatever questions you may have, or any discussion that you would like to look at.
Magdi?
Yes, hello, Esther.
Hi. The other day you were talking about taking a stand. Would you continue to talk about that and the courage and about courage?
I don't remember about taking a stand, but I can talk about courage. So if I'm out for a hike in the forest and somewhere, and I run face to face with a hungry tiger, that's growling at me, and my friend tell me, don't be so afraid. You don't need to run up the tree. Be courageous. And somehow I trust my friend. It's an old friend that's proved themselves to me. So I trust them. And the tiger chases me, and wounds me and I survive. You can be certain that next time my friend tells me, don't climb up the tree, I will not heed their advice. Because I trusted their advice, and their advice, well, I trusted the advice without having to experience that experience before, and their advice proved to be detrimental to my health. So next time they tell me, be courageous, you can jump over that stream, I will have a strong hesitation to listen to them. So my trust in my guide, my friend, is no longer there, while it was there before, but it proved itself to be detrimental to my health. So here in our inquiry into truth and into happiness, our guide friend, our teacher, tells us, in the midst of the greatest emotional storm, negative emotions that are occurring in the midst of your fear and contraction and the thoughts and the feelings that are assailing you, that there is something really, really dangerous that's happening to you, something really bad that is happening to you. And your friend and teacher tells you, be still rather than moving away, move towards rather than resisting, invite rather than ignoring or thinking your way out of it, remain still and invite whatever is arising to fully reveal itself in the stillness of your being. Given the powerful impression of the negative emotion, our tendency is to flee, to argue, to blame, to justify, to think our way out of, to sweep it under the rug. Our tendencies to do that are right there, to protect ourselves, to block the feelings and the emotions. But somehow we trust our guide, we trust the teaching, and we are willing to follow the guidance of the dharma and the guidance of the teacher. And that little spark of trust that is in our heart is very valuable. It may be more than a spark, it may be very strong trust, very strong recognition within our heart, or it may be just a faint spark, and that may require us to really take a leap of faith and trust that that is the path. There is the path of inquiry and the path of surrender. And the test of your trust is going to be in the outcome. If you get mangled by the lion, by the tiger, or not. When you are given a certain guidance that does not deliver the peace and the happiness, you may try it over and over, then that guidance will start to lose your trust, and whatever advice is within that guidance that you felt willing to follow, willing to undertake, will slowly fade away, which is a good thing because it will free you to be available to a teaching that will produce the effect that tours the inner peace and the inner light. So courage and trust go hand in hand. Also, less and less courage will be needed as it becomes more and more clear to you that the guidance is the guidance that speaks to your heart, that resonates for you. Then you saying yes to the guidance is easier and easier, and the hesitation that may have been present initially when you first encountered the teaching, at some time it would be gone. So the trusting the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, trusting the teaching, the teacher, and the spirit of the community that is gathering around the Dharma and the Buddha. It grows in your life. It becomes more and more prevalent in your life. There is an inner resistance within us to let go of our personal images and stories, even when our images or stories are negative ones, somehow there is this belief that it's better than nothing. There is a fear of nothingness, as if it is the neon. How do you say the neon? As if it is like an empty void or something like that. Which is the personal self-illusion that says basically, what would you be if you were not this person, meaning with these stories, with these images, with these beliefs, what would you be? And the teacher tells you, you will be nothing as everything, not just nothing as nothing, but nothing as everything. Follow the guidance, follow the teaching. But there is a hesitation, like maybe when you are jumping off a plane for the first time in parachuting, you need to have two people with you that you trust. They talk to you, they explain to you the experience that of course you have not had yet, but they have had it, and they explain to you the various aspects of it. So at some point you take the jump. The nothingness of the self is the everythingness, nothing as everything. Everything that you experience is the nothingness of the self. But it's not an empty nothingness. It is an aware, knowing nothingness that can be best described as a causeless peace and happiness that initially you recognize and that eventually you die into, you dissolve into. So that there is no longer a recognition of the happiness, there is just the happiness, but there is no one to speak it or to say anything about it. So you come to the silent understanding. So trust and courage go together, because the courage is like going against the current of the mind, going against the tendencies to go out in the world towards relationships, towards situations, towards objects, grasping experiences. Courage is the courage of letting go of that, of being completely dispassionate about the world, body, mind. Okay, Esther.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
Hi, Magdi.
Hello, Anne.
I just wanted to say that a few weeks I've been in this group, I'm really enjoying it so much, and I've really noticed a change in myself, that I can, fall back into that awareness much more, into that peace and happiness much more than I've ever been able to. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for that. I'm really
Beautiful.
grateful to be part of this. What's happening is that I'm falling into that awareness quite often. And you know, you talked about trust, and there is a trust there more and more, and a knowledge that the awareness is always there, even if problems come up or illness comes up. The trust that it's not been lost, it's not gone, it's there, which makes it easier to fall into, and the seeing that the body mind is more of a mind conditioning and habit that I'm in, and even though it's still strong, that the belief in the body mind is still strong. It's just trusting that if I stay in that awareness, if I continue to keep contemplating and relaxing into that awareness, that will disintegrate more and more, because there's a tendency to want to do more, to speed it up, to control. But it's just staying with that awareness and
Yes.
abiding in that. And you know, I've heard certain people talking about, possibly you on one of your talks as well, about when people are, as they're moving around in the world, but they're seeing that they're not doing anything, that the body mind is just doing things, but that they're not doing the actions. And there's quite a desire to want to be able to do that, but I know that I can't really control anything. There's quite a desire to sort of want the next step, as it were, but there isn't a next step. I know that, but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. And
So just continue to relax into being as being. Continue to relax as being, in being. Yes, just being. Continue to being. Which is quite a different thing from thinking.
Yeah.
About the next step, or about you know, I heard this and that, and I heard that there is a doing without a doing, and what is that? And I would like to be experiencing the doing with that doing. That's a different movement. You can notice that movement. It's not an issue. It may arise, which is an arising. You can notice the arising. Me and him, me and her, me and better me and worse me, etc. Me and my hopes, me and my tomorrow, me and tomorrow. You can notice that, and just remaining still, remain as being. Remain as being. Consciousness is not trying to experience doing without a doer, or is all of these are pedagogical map, you know, the part of the map to bring you to rest as being. As you're experiencing the peace of being will be experienced around you as well. But you, as then just relax as that. Allow whatever is arising to arise. It's already arisen anyways. You just watch it arising. You don't need to chase it. Yeah, you know, it's just because consciousness chasing nirvana is illusion. Consciousness chasing the Brahman is illusion. There's no chasing within Brahman. It's just resting as being. Yes, resting as being. So images may arise, comparative thoughts within that are comparing. There's a me and the other. Yes, within the thought there is the fictitious me, blah blah, the image me, the person me, the good spiritual me, whatever, the me that's doing good, whatever. All of that is fiction. Yes, so it's okay.
Yeah.
The image is on the screen, right? So we have no issue, no problem. The mirror has no problem whatsoever with whatever is reflected within it. Yes.
Well, I loved when you just talked to Esther, and I wrote it down when you said the current, getting involved in the current, and that's what I'm saying, is just not to get involved in that current of mind that can take you along with its waves.
Yes.
So it's just keep pulling back from that, stepping back from that current of images and thoughts.
Yeah. There is a stepping back, which is connected with the recognition that is being pulled by the current is nowhere to be found. It's just thought and sensation. There isn't, in fact, anyone being pulled. There is just the impression, and that impression has within it a desire or a resistance. And so relaxing in a way, not to get rid of the desire or the resistance, but to allow the desire and the resistance its full freedom. You say, okay, it's all welcome. Resisting, it's all welcome. Let's welcome resistance. Yeah? So welcome resistance and welcome resistance. So here we are, welcome resistance, and you cannot have welcoming and resistance together. The resistance is gonna dissolve in the welcoming.
Yeah.
That's what's beautiful about welcoming.
Because it is very effortless.
It's effortless.
It's not, if there's any effort there, it just doesn't happen. It's very, very subtle, and it's effortless.
Effort has within it the idea of somebody efforting. Somebody efforting. So effort is actually somebody efforting, but in fact there is nobody efforting. It's a mental somebody efforting, and so let's feel it. God, I'm doing such effort. So it's a mentation with let's play acting. Is that the right word? Let's play act. Somebody efforting. You know, when you're pulling the rope, so you contract your muscle, your forearm. You imagine that rough rope in your hands, and you're pulling it in, and you tighten your belly, you pull your shoulders, but it's all play acting. Yeah. So there isn't for effort to be real. There has to be somebody doing an effort. When you look for the somebody doing the effort, what do you find outside of thoughts and images?
Nothing.
Nothing, right? So the whole concept of effort goes hand in hand with somebody, some I would say fictitious somebody who's efforting. And so we believe that, and then the body play acts that. Is that the right word? Play acts that.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Plays acts that. And so now it's feeling like, oh yeah, Yeah, it's efforting. I'm efforting. You see how this contraction and this it's contraction. See? You see? We do that, right?
Yeah,
We do.
yeah,
We do that, and then
yeah.
we're like, oh, I mean, and then it's just yes,
Like watching a movie and thinking you're the one in pain that's in the movie or something.
yes, right. It's because we are so, the body mind is so sympathetic. It is interconnected with everything. So a thought or an image, and we experience it here. Like sometimes there is a child crying, 50 feet away, but we see the child, and we're feeling, and it's a child somewhere over there crying, and we have no idea what's going on. But because there's such plasticity within the body mind, that we experience something. We experience a sadness, a sorrow for the child, or a kindness towards the child. And so it's really beautiful to nurture within the body mind the lovely plasticity, and not the anger, the jealousy, the hatred, the coveting, the judgment. These thoughts, we can let them go. We don't park ourselves around them. We don't weave a sweater out of that yarn. We don't weave a scarf out of that yarn.
Yeah, because when you fall back into that awareness, there's such a lovely flow to it.
Yeah, oh, beautiful.
There's an ease, and
sure.
I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's there. It's about happiness, and what's lovely about happiness and living as consciousness and reveling in that is that it's felt all around. That's when you go to the store, it's felt. You say hello. You're not trying to do anything. You're not just trying to be happy. You just
It's
you don't have
natural.
an issue. It's natural, yes, natural.
Yeah.
But it's felt. Why? Because most of the mind is contracted, and when it encounters the love and the beauty, it enjoys it. It relaxes in it.
Yeah.
In general, because sometimes I'm just speaking in general. Okay, so it's not in mission.
So, do you think then that this, when I have a lot of those sort of, let's say, glimpses in the day, it's becoming very frequent now that I'm in that lovely relaxed state of awareness, and do you think that this sort of desire for more or to go deeper is just part of that efforting?
Well, I wouldn't be so categorical about it. It's normal when you've been in yourself for so long, and you go out in the yard, and you enjoy the yard, that you want to experience that more often. It's a normal, because it's happy, you see. So you don't want to leave it, and slowly you realize that you're in fact never leaving it. You are it. It may take a little while to realize that, but you would realize that you are it. You are that, and there are sometimes clouds that are passing, but who's in a hurry? Consciousness is not going anywhere. It's not trying to have a longer life or better home or a better experience or a better girlfriend or a better job. It's not trying to do that. Consciousness is not trying to do any of that. There's no rush. There's no this the eternity of consciousness, the eternity of being. So what initially seemed to be something that you're experiencing, more and more frequently, eventually you realize that in fact it's not something you're experiencing more frequently. It's just that more and more there is more and more distance between the clouds. That
Yes.
the sky is always there, and the clouds are appearing less and less frequently, less and less often. And you realize, aha, I am that. I am that peace and happiness. And the sky has no issue with the cloud. Zero issues with the cloud. Right?
Yeah. Well, last time you spoke to me about that and about having an issue with thoughts and things, and that really dropped away after I spoke to you.
Yes, it's important to realize the sky has no issue with the cloud. So it's a cloud. Oh, interesting. A contraction, for whatever reason. Sometimes we pick up a contraction from the space. There could be some event happening, in your neighbor's house.
Yes, yeah.
Between the neighbor and their children, or one of his children, and it's energetic, and you have no idea what it is, but you're picking up this energy of something.
Yeah.
And you don't need to know what it is. You don't need to. You don't need to. Simply recognize that nothing is actually happening to you. To you, not you the woman, not you the person, not you the body, not you the image, not you the bundle of images or thoughts. That's not you. The I, the I, is not phenomenal. It's not made out of atoms and molecules and protons and photons. That's not the self. That's not consciousness. That's something phenomenal. That's something at the mind level. What you are is the reality of being. The reality of awareness, presence, awareness, aware presence. And that's not made out of anything. Things arise as objects in awareness. They're mentations, forms, but they're just mental.
And that's what I'm getting used to. That sort of seems like a switch over from believing that the solid objects, the forms, the body, the thoughts, and what I perceive, what I see is reality, to the transparency being reality, because the belief and the conditioning are so strong in the form.
Yes.
It's just trying to break that down and
yes.
believing in the
form
or a
is
spirit. I sometimes like to think of it as spirit rather than the body.
You could say that the form is an instrument at the service of consciousness. So we can, via the body mind, we can use the body mind consciousness. Use the body mind for sweetness, for sweet actions, for gentle, fair behavior, tender, comprehensive, loving. So that the waking dream is sweet for everyone. There is a shared experience, you see, at the mind level. There is a shared mind. There is an individual mind and a shared mind. Individual mind, like for example, I see this screen, I see this living room, but you see a different living room, a different room. This is and not shared. It's not shared. But at the same time, we're sharing this conversation, so there is a shared mind. And we share, for example, the knowledge that there is a Pacific Ocean. We share the knowledge about the unfortunate earthquake that happened a couple of years ago in Nepal, or was it Nepal or Kathmandu? Yeah. Anyway, so at the mind level, there is the separate mind and the shared mind. Yes. We all know what an oak tree means, or what a banana, or what the cherries mean. We all have a shared image of a rose. Yes. But that is at the body-mind level. And what we don't share is consciousness. Consciousness, we don't share it because we are it. That's not something we share. That is the isness. That is the absolute. There is no sharing of the absolute. There is just the absolute, just the isness of the absolute. So you recognize yourself as that. You recognize the self. You recognize the absolute. Okay, Anne?
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, very lovely. So any questions, anyone? There was a question that was sent last time on YouTube. I didn't have a chance to get to it, which was by Kunal Kar. I don't know if Kunal, you're watching, but I will answer the question anyways. The question was, it was a question about the purification of an LSD experience. Okay, I'm just going to speak briefly about that. In some cases, a certain worldly experience can trigger a glimpse into the self. Welcome, Suzanne. Now, this will only occur when you're ready for it. In other words, somebody could be having the exact same experience as you and that will not trigger. In other words, you could be two people, same people taking the same dose of LSD, and one person may have a glimpse into the self, the other may not at all. So it's possible that a certain condition will trigger a glimpse into the self when you are ready for it. In the case of usage of what we refer to as drugs, some people refer to them as medicines or whatever, doesn't matter, as an aid to having a glimpse into the self. There is a price to pay, which is that there will be both physiological and psychological residues to the use of LSD or other and so your good fortune would be if you soon enough meet a guide that can help you in that process. And if you don't, you will eventually get purified out of that process, but it may take you maybe this entire lifetime. A little less if you are fortunate, or in some cases more. So, of course, the greatest fortune in terms of being on the journey is to hear the teaching and contemplate and meditate upon the teachings, and having a guide to help you along the path. Well, any questions, anyone?
Magdi?
Yes, Zoe?
Yes.
Yes, hello, Zoe.
So the last thing you were talking about triggered something for me, because that was my path in high school. I did lots of drugs and alcohol and hallucinogenics. And
Mm-hmm.
how you mentioned the psychological and physiological residue. You know, it's been many, many years since I've done anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, like how long that affects the body mind.
It depends. In terms of the physiological, it depends, how long you have used, I just use the term drugs, the various means of drugs, and what dosage and what kind. There are effects upon the body. There are physiological effects that are studied, and there is data about them. May still be dynamic, not a very black and white data, but there is a bunch of data on that. Most concerning is the psychological. There are all sorts of psychological effects. The self-doubt, which is connected with dependence and believing that there is a vulnerability of the self with the drug that you basically needed. Now, I don't know what in your case, whether you were using them recreationally, or whether or whether they were also part of your journey work.
Well, I wasn't really on that. It was just purely to get out of emotional pain that I was using them. Yeah. So at that point, then, when I stopped, really my heavy drug use was like from age 14 to 17, and then it tapered off, and then I stopped.
Yes.
Yeah.
My comment to Kunal Kar was more connected with the use of LSD in relation to having a glimpse of the self via the drug. Now, in terms of the physiological and psychological effects of the drugs, that the outside of the realm of how it affects your journey towards awakening, that falls into a medical or scientific field that is beyond my knowledge and my interest. So there are other people that you can consult about what, and depending also on your own experience, and if you need to, the physiological and psychological effects of using drugs for, there are some people who just having one LSD journey have suffered psychological effects for decades after that. So it varies. Others have not at all, or have very little. I was just addressing the question, and I'm not sure if, because I have a feeling that your question is not dealing with what is the impact or what is the relationship of this sort of experiments with awakening to the self.
Yeah, well, when I heard you say, you could spend your whole life overcoming the effects of it, I guess that triggered something for me.
Yes,
yeah.
That's interesting. That is very interesting that it did trigger something for you.
Yeah.
Which means that it touched something within you.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. Not that, I'm not saying that is the case, that something is actually touched, even though it's been, if I understood you, like, quite a while that you're no longer using these drugs, right? Is that right? So it's interesting that still within the psyche there is that little space that is like dormant, that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
That can be triggered. Oh, well, what do you mean? Like, is something still happening to me, or something may happen to me?
Yes.
Isn't it interesting? So that in itself speaks to some sort of residue, which is not a big deal, but it's just, there's some sort of potential something that's still may get triggered. And I would discard it. I wouldn't really go much further than that, just to let it be, because that's really not something that is of your concern right now. It's just something that got triggered by what I said. I wouldn't start digging down that hole. Let it be.
Okay.
So there are people who advise journey works, you know, in terms of in the spiritual journey. I don't at all.
You mean like doing what they call plant medicine or whatever? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
yes.
not, I can't get on board with that either. But I think that's partially because of my experience. It's like, why use something temporary? That doesn't get you anywhere. Yeah. Plus, as you mentioned, all the physiological effects and psychological effects. Yeah.
Among the highest blessings in this realm is to hear the teaching and to be engaged in the contemplation, meditation, and the guidance in the teaching. That is among the highest blessings. Okay, so any other questions, anyone? Yes? Okay, well, then thank you all for your lovely company, and blessings to you all. We'll see you soon. Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Same.
Anne, okay, Zoe, Esther, Richard, Shiva.